Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning. You check your phone, your bank account, your notifications, but none of that matters anymore because on your forearm, glowing green is a number. 23 hours, 47 minutes, 12 seconds. That's it. That's your entire life. Every second that ticks by is a second you will never get back. And when it hits 0, you don't get a warning. You don't get a goodbye. You just stop. Now here's the part that'll really get under your skin. The rich, they've got thousands of years on their clocks. They've essentially hacked mortality itself. They will never die. But you're out here hustling just to survive until tomorrow. Welcome to 2169. Welcome to the most brutally honest metaphor for capitalism ever put on screen. And welcome to the story of one man who decided enough. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we break down the most mind-bending, thought-provoking films ever made. And today's pick is absolutely one of the most underrated sci-fi thrillers of the past 2 decades. We're talking about a world where time literally is money, where the elite hoard centuries while the working class scrapes by on hours, where dying isn't a tragedy, it's just Tuesday. Strap in, this one hits different. The year is 2169, and science has something extraordinary and absolutely terrifying. Genetic engineering has effectively switched off the aging process. At 25, your body freezes. You stop aging completely. You look 25 forever. Sounds incredible, right? Here's the catch. The moment you hit 25, a 1-year countdown clock activates, embedded directly into your forearm, glowing, ticking, relentless. And that 1 year, that's your entire remaining life, unless you earn more. Because time has become the only currency that matters. Bus fare, paid in minutes. Rent, weeks. A coffee, a few seconds. Every single transaction drains your clock. And the moment it zeroes out, your heart stops. Mid-sentence, mid-step, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Gone. The world has fractured into what they call time zones, basically rigid socio-economic castes, except instead of just being poor, being at the bottom means you could literally drop dead on your way to work. The roughest zone is called Dayton. Think of it as the world's most permanent ghetto, a sprawling industrial district full of factories, loan sharks, and people who never, ever have more than 24 hours on their clocks at any given time. One bad day, one unexpected expense, one missed shift, and you're done. No safety net, no second chances. And on the other end of the spectrum sits New Greenwich. If Dayton is rock bottom, New Greenwich is some untouchable penthouse reality that most people will never see. The people there have centuries on their clocks. Some have millennia. They've essentially become immortal just by being born into the right zip code. And right smack in the middle of all this, surviving day to day in Dayton, is our guy, Will Solace. 28 years old, looks 25, same as everyone else, works double shifts at a factory, lives with his mother, doesn't complain, doesn't dream too big, just keeps his head down and tries to make it to tomorrow. But that's about to change. Violently. One night, Will walks into a local bar. Nothing unusual, except he notices someone. A man sitting alone, drinking like he's got absolutely nothing to lose. Goes by the name Henry Hamilton. Looks 25, but Will can tell immediately this guy doesn't belong here. Because on Hamilton's forearm, 116 years. Let that sink in. 116 years of time in Dayton. That's like walking into the worst neighborhood in the city, flashing a briefcase full of cash and acting surprised when people notice. And sure enough, they notice. Fortis and his crew, the Minutemen, are the wolves of Dayton. Time thieves. They don't mug you for your wallet. They grab your wrist, drain your clock, and walk away while you collapse on the pavement. They've spotted Hamilton, and they are absolutely salivating. Will steps in. Doesn't have to, but he does. He gets Hamilton out of there, drags him to safety while Fortis's crew circles like sharks. That night, hiding together, Hamilton opens up. And what he says next? In music builds, in peaks, then drops to near silence. The system is rigged. The people in New Greenwich, they hoard time deliberately. They keep raising prices in zones like ours so that nobody down here ever accumulates enough to escape. For a few people to be immortal, a whole lot of people have to die young. Will doesn't say much, just sits with it. But somewhere in his gut, those words are already taking root. The next morning, Will wakes up alone. Hamilton is gone, but something feels different. Will looks at his forearm. 116 years. Hamilton transferred nearly everything he had to Will while he slept, left himself just 5 minutes. And somewhere across town, quietly, without any fuss, Henry Hamilton's clock hit 0. And he just sat down and stopped. Why would someone do that? Why give everything, your entire remaining life, to a stranger? The answer to that question is going to haunt Will for the rest of this story. But right now, he doesn't have time to grieve because the authorities have shown up. They're called timekeepers, the law enforcement of this world. Think feds, but colder, more corporate. Their entire job is to police the flow of time, make sure nobody's got more than their fair share. And their lead investigator, Raymond Leon, has already made up his mind. In his eyes, Will robbed Hamilton, killed him for his time. Just like that, Will is a wanted man. Music becomes sparse, emotional. Will's plan: get out of Dayton, take his mother and head for New Greenwich, start fresh, use Hamilton's gift to build something real. Before he leaves, he finds his best mate Burrell and hands him a decade's worth of time. 10 years, exactly as long as they've known each other. No big speech, just something he needs to do. And then he waits for his mom. Her name's Rachel. She'd been working a double shift in the garment district, backbreaking, clock-draining work. And when she went to pay off a 2-day loan at the end of her shift, she was left with almost nothing. Not enough for the bus. The driver looked at her clock, shrugged, said, "You better run." So she ran. Will spotted her from a distance, sprinting towards him. He started running too, closing the gap. Almost there. 20 meters. 10. 5. Rachel's clock hit 0. She collapsed in the street, 3 seconds before Will could reach her. 3 seconds before he could transfer even a minute to save her. He caught her as she fell, held her, called her name. 3 seconds. That's all it was. 3 seconds between his mother living and dying. 3 seconds that the system stole from her because the bus fare went up, because the loan was predatory, because someone in New Greenwich decided that prices needed to rise again this quarter. Will sat on that pavement for a long time, and when he got up, he wasn't the same person anymore. Hamilton's words echoed back. For a few to be immortal, a whole lot of people have to die. Will looked at the 116 years on his arm, and he made a decision. He was gonna burn it all down. New Greenwich, the lion walks into the penthouse. Music becomes sleek, cool, slightly sinister. Will crosses into New Greenwich, and the culture shock is immediate. Nobody rushes here. Nobody runs. People stroll. They speak slowly, deliberately. When you've got centuries on your clock, urgency becomes a foreign concept. Even fear feels different, muted, distant, wrapped in silk. Will cleans up, adjusts his posture, and walks straight into the casino. That's where he meets Philippe Weiss, the single most powerful time lender in the world, the man who essentially controls the financial system that's been bleeding Dayton dry for generations. Charming, immaculate, the kind of guy who's never once had to worry about tomorrow.
and his daughter, Sylvia. Sharp, restless, beautiful in that particular way that comes from never having wanted for anything, yet somehow sensing that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong with the world she was born into. Will sits down at the poker table. This is where things get very interesting. The game escalates fast, bets and decades. Will nearly flatlines at the table, his clock bleeding out, but he keeps his nerve, reads the room, plays the long game, and he walks away with 1,000 years. Pause, 2 seconds. Sylvia's intrigued. She invites him to his party that evening. Will, absolutely committing to the bit, goes and drops 59 years on a vintage Jaguar E-Type, a classic, gorgeous car. The salesman cheerfully reminds him there's tax on top of that. Will doesn't even blink.
That night at the party, something unexpected happens. Will and Sylvia actually connect. He talks to her differently than anyone ever has. Not performing wealth, not managing her expectations, just being honest. He convinces her to do something the ultra-rich never do. Go for a midnight swim in the ocean. Because when you have 1,000 years, you stop taking risks. You stop living. They're standing in the surf, laughing when the timekeepers show up. Raymond Leone, stone-faced, efficient. He claps Will, hauls him in, and without a trial, without evidence, without a single moment of due process, strips nearly everything from his clock, leaves him with 2 hours. This time doesn't belong in Dayton, Raymond says flatly. 2 hours. The clock is ticking. The escape. 48 hours to live. Nothing left to lose. Will doesn't hesitate. He grabs Sylvia, yes, takes her hostage, if we're being technical about it, and they bolt. But Fortis has been watching. His crew sets up a roadblock. Will pushes the Jag hard, clips the barrier, and the car goes into a flood control channel. Both of them out cold. When they come around, Fortis is already gone, and so is almost all their time. 30 minutes. Between the two of them. 30 minutes. Will drags Sylvia to Boral's place. Maybe there's spare time there. Maybe they can borrow enough to breathe. He knocks. The door opens. It's Greta, Boral's wife, eyes red, voice hollow. Boral drank himself to death. Literally, spent all his time, every last drop, on alcohol. Timed out. The 10 years Will gave him, gone. Just gone. No time to process it. 30 minutes. Tick, tick, tick. Sylvia pulls off her diamond earrings. Old money, obscene value, and they pawn them for a day's worth of time. Enough to breathe, enough to think. Will gets on the phone to Philippe. You want your daughter back. Send 1,000 years to the Time Charity, the one that helps people in Dayton. Do that, and she walks. Philippe's response? No. He says no, doesn't even hesitate. His own daughter, and he does the actuarial calculation in his head and decides the 1,000 years is worth more. Low, dark music sting. Will releases Sylvia anyway, no conditions, just lets her go. And Sylvia, having just learned exactly what kind of man her father is, turns around and comes straight back to Will. She's done with that world. So what's the plan, she asks. Will looks at her. We crash the system. Robin Hood with a body count.
Will and Sylvia hit Philippe's time banks, one after another. Clean, fast, surgical. They crack the vaults, walk out with massive capsules of stored time, and go straight to the streets of Dayton. Handing it out, redistributing it, watching people's faces shift from desperation to disbelief to something that looks almost like hope. For a moment, just a moment, it feels like it might actually work. But then the twist hits, and it's ice cold. Philippe doesn't panic. He doesn't call emergency meetings. He just adjusts the prices. Every extra unit of time flooding into Dayton, he absorbs it by hiking the cost of food, rent, transport, inflation, weaponized in real time.
The more Will gives, the more Philippe takes. The system self-corrects. The gap stays exactly the same. It's like bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon while someone else is drilling new holes in the hull. Will and Sylvia realize it. Small heists aren't enough. They need to do something catastrophic. Meanwhile, Raymond is closing in. He's relentless. This case has become personal for him. He grew up in Dayton, got out, built his career enforcing the very rules that keep people like his former neighbors trapped. Whether that's conviction or self-loathing dressed up as duty, hard to say. There's a confrontation. It goes sideways. Raymond takes a bullet. Will, and this is the part that tells you everything about who he actually is, transfers 2 hours to Raymond, saves the man who's been hunting him, then steals his car and drives away. Fortis tracks them down. Of course he does. But this time, Will is ready. They settle it the old-fashioned way, a wrist lock. In this world, it's essentially Russian roulette with your lifespan. You grab each other's forearms, and whoever can drain the other's clock first wins. The loser gets nothing. The loser dies. Will knows this technique. His father, long dead, taught him. Muscle memory from a childhood spent in survival mode. Fortis grabs Will's wrist, squeezes. Will twists, locks the grip, reverses it. Fortis flatlines. The Minutemen scatter. Will takes care of the rest. The road to Philippe's vault is clear. Target, Philippe Weiss's personal vault. Inside, 1 million years of stored time, a number so obscene it barely registers as real. 1 million years sitting in a box while people in Dayton die because they can't afford the bus. Will and Sylvia get in. They get out, and they bring every last capsule directly to the streets of Dayton. Raymond makes his final move, chases them from Greenwich all the way back to the streets he grew up on, the streets he spent his whole career trying to forget. But he miscalculates. In the chaos of the chase, Raymond forgets to collect his daily pay, his per diem, the automatic salary top-up that keeps timekeepers functional. His clock runs dry. Raymond Lowen, the man who devoted his entire existence to enforcing the system, is killed by it.
Will and Sylvia nearly go with him. They're seconds from flatline when they grab Raymond's uncollected salary and pull themselves back from the edge. The news reports start coming in. Dayton's factories are shutting down, not because of disaster, not because of war, because people have time now. Actual time. And when you give desperate people enough time to breathe, they stop showing up to the jobs that were killing them. The economic engine that powered New Greenwich's immortality starts sputtering. The timekeepers pull back. The system doesn't know how to process what's happening. And Will and Sylvia? They're already moving to the next target, then the next. They're not done. They know one heist doesn't fix a century of engineered inequality, but it's a start. The revolution isn't televised, it's distributed, one stolen millennium at a time. And that, right there, is In Time, a film that came out over a decade ago and somehow gets more relevant every single year, because the central premise isn't really science fiction, is it? The idea that the ultra-wealthy hoard resources while the rest of us run out of time, literally and figuratively, hits a little too close to home. Will Salas didn't have superpowers, didn't have a plan, just had rage, grief, and a dead man's gift. Sometimes that's enough. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. Hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this every week. We'll see you in the next one.